I have fond memories of the 2010s. Horror Let's Play YouTube was in full effect, ushering in a new era of indie horror games. Dennis and I even made Let's Plays of horror games back then, pre Under the Bun.
Get in the elevator.
Dennis and I played a shit ton of these games. Things like I'm Scared, SCP Containment Breach, SCP-087 and 087B, Inside, One Late Night, Eyes, and of course really good games like Outlast, Amnesia, and Anna. Creepypastas were becoming more and more popular, and the king of all of them, inspiring a bunch of YouTube channels, crappy horror games, and even real-life killings, stood the Slender Man. Slender Man was a cultural icon, bringing a new age of kids into the horror genre. But now, years later, it's time for Slender Man to move over. There's a new internet horror icon in town. The 40-foot-tall, lumbering monstrosity known as Siren Head. Siren Head was a creature made by Trevor Henderson in 2018. He's depicted as a 40-foot-tall monster that hunts people, usually depicted in the woods or rural areas. He has long, slender appendages and a siren-like head with teeth which emit loud siren-like sounds, and sounds which mock emergency alerts and even mock its victims. I didn't learn about this creature until 2019 and personally didn't see it blow up on the internet until this year. Throughout the years, many Siren Head games have been released, depicting him in different ways and attempting to add to his lore as an internet urban legend. And I just played a bunch of them, so here are some Siren Head games. Up first, we have Siren Head, developed by Modus Interactive, the game that started the whole trend, and was actually released all the way back in 2018. In Siren Head, you're a forest ranger looking for missing hikers. While searching through the woods, you find a bunch of things wrong, including long skids of blood on the floor and these loud siren screeches off in the distance. These sirens are loud and irritating. Eventually you realize that things aren't alright, and you are being stalked by the terror known as Siren Head. You hightail it back to your car, and the game ends. If you could call it a game, the whole thing takes less than 5 minutes, and has no gameplay mechanics other than walking. I honestly didn't really enjoy this interactive experience. It wasn't really fun to play, and it's just a walking sim. And it really wasn't all that scary or suspenseful. Still, it introduced me to the character and the lore of Siren Head, and this is the first game, so maybe we'll get some better ones, right? SCP-6789 Siren Head was released this year by Darascope. Contrary to the name's title, Siren Head isn't a recognized SCP, but my personal knowledge of SCP extends to Containment Breach and some of the other SCP games I've played, so I really don't give a shit. Anyway, SCP-6789 is another gameplayless interactive narrative thing like the last game. In this one, you find yourself trying to watch the news, and a strange occurrence happens. You're waiting for your wife to come home. She's been gone longer than she should have. Eventually, you hear a noise and go out to investigate. Once outside, Siren Head squishes your wife's car with her in it and crushes you. Again, it's not much of a game, lasting like 5 minutes again, and I didn't find it particularly scary, but I think I'm starting to get a better understanding of what Siren Head is now. Alright, let's move on to the next game. The Legend of Siren Head shifts perspective from the first person to a side-scroller. Presentation-wise, the game looks decent. It has some pretty good bit-style graphics, but like the first two games, where is the gameplay? Instead of walking around in 3 dimensions, you walk around in 2. You literally just hold right the entire game and press space when you approach a fence to go to the next screen. Like in Siren Head, you also see these big skids of blood. There must have been a call sign or something for the monster. Anyways, eventually you come to another fence, Siren Head kills you, there's a news story about your disappearance, and it ends. Another game that can be finished in under 5 minutes. What is with all these 5-minute interactive scenes? It's kind of making me miss the shitty Unity shovelware games from like 2012. Like, shit, Slender was a crap game, but at least it was a game with objectives and mechanics. Alright, here we go. Some actual 2010s-esque horror games. This is the stuff we came here for, right? YouTube bait shit. Alright, Siren Head Field by Mustache Banana. Siren Head Field sees the player waking up in the middle of the night to strange sounds. Your parents are missing, and you have to go explore a nearby corn maze to find them. Stalking you as you progress through this maze is the monster which we're making the video all about. Unlike every other game so far on this list, the game actually has some gameplay mechanics. You can find these paper airplanes around the house, which can be used to distract Siren Head. These airplanes are placed randomly and need to be rediscovered with every playthrough. The goal of Siren Head Field is to walk through a corn maze and find these generators. Completing a mini-game will activate the generator. Activate enough and a door will open, letting you leave to the next area. The maze, the minigames, and the generator placement are also random, so each playthrough feels different, and, of course, you have to do all of this while avoiding Siren Head himself. Siren Head has some good ideas. The ability to distract Siren Head with the airplanes is a good feature, but I couldn't seem to figure out how to successfully do it. I'd mash the mouse button like the controls said, but it wouldn't throw. I'd sometimes be able to throw it by sliding my hand across the keyboard, but it just wasn't effective, and I don't know what button actually triggered it. It also only provides a brief distraction, and the Siren Head will often come right back onto your trail. The puzzles are another good inclusion. They actually add a bit of thought. Basic pattern recognition or logic puzzle stuff. Nothing crazy, but I appreciated the variety of gameplay. The maze also has some additional elements to it, like random scenes of squealing pigs and zombie arms sticking out from the corn. They don't really do anything, but they add to the atmosphere. Siren Head Field still isn't really all that great though, and that's because the game isn't balanced. It's just way too difficult. Siren Head seems to know where you are at all times. He's always blocking your path, and you can't really run from him once he starts chasing you. The distraction thing only works okay for a brief moment, but you only get a handful of paper airplanes, so it doesn't really matter. I've spent more time than I'd like to admit playing this game, and I couldn't even finish the first level, and there's like 7 total. And I just didn't have the patience or the interest to continue playing this game. I appreciate the effort, but it's just not really what I was looking for. Siren Head, the 3D horror game by Joel TTY Joel, is another one of those games that blends walking sim with some real-life exploration elements. You're a kid at camp, you hear these sirens in the middle of the night, and like a dumbass you go out to investigate them. Upon investigating, you stumble upon, you guessed it, Siren Head. You run back to camp, and with the goal of finding keys to unlock some doors and call for safety, this game is a little confusing, it doesn't really explain much. The beginning describes your room as a safe haven, but Siren Head can still kill you when you're in it. And then there's this thing. Siren Head Retribution, made by Nathan Brower. It's your typical walk through the woods and collect things horror game. You play as a forest maintenance worker looking for your coworkers. The workstation is abandoned and mysterious notes litter everywhere. You discover the power is out, so you turn it on and suddenly your car is thrown into a tree. Fearful of what is out there, you have to fix a car in a nearby garage and escape to safety. Of course, as you are finding parts, Siren Head is out there trying to get you. Your only defense is to sprint to run away. This sprint doesn't recharge, so you have to use it sparingly. Siren Head also cannot get you while you're inside of a building, so you can use that to your advantage. You need to collect various things to fix up the car: battery, tire, gas. There are some other things you can collect to add to your car as well. Depending on what you have, you will get one of 3 endings: a good ending, a bad ending, and a secret ending. Siren Head Retribution is an alright game, definitely a functional game with a decent difficulty that doesn't feel unfair. But it's definitely the type of game you would come to expect if you play a lot of these indie horror Unity games. That said, trying to run to the safety of the garage with Siren Head tailing my ass definitely made me feel some anxiety. Siren Head, the Horror Experience by Thomas09. This is essentially a Slender clone, only instead of collecting pages, you collect cell phones. You play as an officer investigating the disappearance of some campers. You find their abandoned campsite with bloodstains left behind. From here, you have to find their phones for evidence and avoid being killed by Siren Head. Like I said, Siren Head the horror game is really a Slender clone. It looks, it feels, and it plays just like it. One of the cooler and more unique things about this game though is how Siren Head looks and moves, especially when he gets close to you. Moving around on all four limbs and looking more red in appearance, it just makes it more unique. The first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck? I thought it was a different monster, it totally got me off guard. Once you collect all the phones, Siren Head chases you as you escape to your car, and the game ends. If you like Slender, you'll like this game. Here's another game simply titled Siren Head, this one by Undreamed Panic. I actually liked this one, for the most part. Like with pretty much all these other games, you play as somebody going camping in the woods, you try to meet up with your friends and find that they have disappeared, and that their campsite is covered in blood. You go to call for help by the nearby ranger station and are being stalked by Siren Head. Right off the bat, I like the presentation of this one. The dark blues make this game stick out from other Siren Head games. The kind of bit style to the graphics look really cool too. The objectives are simple enough, but the fear of running into Siren Head is still there to provide some challenge. In this game though, you can shoot Siren Head to stun him and get away. You have to reload manually, one bullet at a time, so make sure your shots count. If I had to compare this game to any of the Slender games, it would be Slender the Arrival, which also had a more unique art style, some more compelling gameplay elements, and was by far the best Slender game that I played back in the day. Here is where I get into the issues of Siren Head though. This is one buggy game. My game froze several times while trying to complete it, once before I even started a game, and another right at the end here. It's really frustrating, especially because you can't save, so if your game freezes, you gotta restart from the beginning. The movement also feels a little wonky, especially when going up hills or trying to walk around trees. I found myself constantly getting stuck on branches. And while that might add to the intensity of running from Siren Head because you have to really watch where you're going, it's still annoying to get stuck on the level geometry at times. If the bugs were ironed out, this Siren Head game would have been a solid little indie game. Short and simple, but enjoyable. And now here we are in our final and best Siren Head game, the Siren Head dating sim. Now I've just played through 10 Siren Head games. I think I understand him a bit better. I'd love to take it to the next level. Really get to know him for more than being a monster. Maybe go get some ice cream and fall in love.